Hey guys, it's Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein. It is 5 o'clock on Sunday evening. We just got the new information in for the 5 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center. There have been changes in both the current conditions and the track that'll impact us, and we're going to break it all down on what it means and when this is all going to happen. I'll give everyone just a few more seconds to chime in. I'll be back with everything in just a minute. Cool, thank you. Hey guys, Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein here. Thanks for your patience. Just wanted to make sure we give everyone the opportunity. I know today is all about the NFL being back on, and I know the Panthers are playing, but I also know that a lot of people are thinking about Florence, so I wanted to bring you the latest on what's going on from the National Hurricane Center. So we just got all the new track and current data information. The Hurricane Hunter is out there now. We've got a stronger hurricane. There have been no major shifts in the path of the track, the forecast, but there have been some changes in the speed, and I think that could have a big impact on us. We're going to talk about that and what that all means. Throughout this, I want you to chime in with your questions. Let me know what your concerns are, if there's something I'm not covering that we need to cover, because we have now 4 days until a high impact hurricane is going to be in the Carolinas, and in those 4 days a lot could change, and that's why we do these updates every 6 hours. But also in those 4 days a lot's going to happen fast, and before you know it, Thursday will be here, and that's when the rain and the wind could begin for our area. So let's talk about the overall big picture of kind of what I want to send with the new updates. So as I mentioned, it could be a Category 4 hurricane on our coast. Now, that doesn't mean to be a Category 4 by the time it would get here to central North Carolina, but it would be a major impact event for us with rain and wind starting on Thursday. I think the changes today, stronger winds, so winds are now up to 85 miles per hour. That's with the current conditions, and as I said, the track didn't move much, but it's slowed down big time when it gets here, and you know how much rain a hurricane can dump on us. We learned it in Matthew. If things continue to go the way they're going, I think some of us could see more rain than what happened in Matthew. So the forecast, the next couple days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to go to work and school, and everything's going to seem pretty normal. And then things will start to change Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday. I think it could last that long because of how slow it's going to be moving, and of course, how big it is going to be. So let's look at big picture. First of all, there's Florence, still more than 1,000 miles away from us. But did you know that we also have Tropical Storm Isaac and now Hurricane Helene right behind it? The forecast path for those two, obviously not as important as Florence, but they also don't look to have big impacts on us anytime in the near or medium future. So we're not going to get too worried about those, but I do want to show you a close-up look of what's going on with Hurricane Florence. There it is, some 1,400 miles away from our coast. And I picked Wilmington because it's a big city and everyone knows it, and it's a good point that we're going to use throughout this week. So we're going to watch that number, 1,428, go down, down, down over the course of the next several days. And to be honest with you, I mean, it is possible that at some point that number could say 0. I mean, Wilmington could have a direct hit here. Again, winds right now are 85 miles per hour. Wind gusts are up to 105, and it's moving west at 7. So two things about the speed of its movement, 7 miles per hour. That's pretty slow, right? I mean, how long would it take for you to drive to work or school going 7 miles an hour? It's going to take a long time for it to get here. That's good. That's also bad because it's going to have a lot of time to sit over the really warm water, and it's going to have a long time to sit over wind shear that is almost non-existent. Now remember, last couple days, a few days ago, lots of wind shear tore this thing apart. Well, now the winds are really relaxed. And if you just look at the system, I mean, look at that satellite. It's starting to get more symmetrical, and before too long, I bet you we're going to be able to actually see that eye. And that tells a story. That tells us that, hey, this thing is organized and we have to take it seriously. I mentioned the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. You know, they started flying on Saturday, and pretty much nonstop between now and the time this thing makes landfall, the men and women of the U.S. Air Force are going to be out there flying in and around it. Today, or at least this particular mission right now, they're flying around it. Looks like they're about ready to make a penetration into the eye wall. So what they'll do is they'll get all this information. The more current data we have, the winds, the humidity, the temperature, what's going on in all levels of the atmosphere, through the outside of the hurricane, right into the eye of the hurricane, the more current information we have, the better forecast we can have, and the better forecast the computer models can spit out at us. So that's very important, the work they're doing. They've actually relocated. If you follow me, I try to pay close attention to this because I think it's just fascinating. They're usually based out of Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, or MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. Well, with a storm this far out, they've relocated to Bermuda and to St. Croix, which, I mean, sounds like, right, they're living in paradise, but they're making 8 to 10 hour flights into these massive storms for us, so not really a paradise. So here is the latest track. Again, a Category 1 hurricane now, expected to really explode because of that warm water I talked about, to a Category 3 by Monday afternoon. Then it's a Cat 4 Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now keep in mind, the intensity forecasts up to this point haven't been great, so that could fluctuate either way. But then look what happens as it gets close to our coast. You know how all of a sudden the icons get really close together? That's because it's slowing down. So the same amount of time, the thing slows down, the icons get closer together. So that'll be important. I'll talk more about that in a second. I want to drop in the center line of this cone, because remember, the cone tells us that that is where the eye of the hurricane could be 2/3 of the time. 1/3 of the time, it's going to be outside that. So we have to remember that. That's where the eye is going to be 2/3 of the time. So let's just draw a center line down that, okay? And then I'm going to compare that red line to the 11 a.m. Sunday update, which is now the white line you see, okay? So that shows us the changes in the track path. And as you can see, I mean, there are some small points that we could delineate, but no big changes in the path. All right, so let's zoom in on that cone, and let's talk about when it gets to the Carolinas. So here we are, Thursday at 2 o'clock, a Category 4 hurricane with 140-mile-per-hour winds. Then, 24 hours later, it's only made it to the Triangle, Central North Carolina, maybe Charlotte, maybe the Outer Banks. Okay, think about that. 24 hours, it goes that far. That's really slow. The whole time, it is going to be raining really hard. The winds, they'll slowly decrease once it moves inland, so that'll be a concern, but the main concern is the rain. Very close second is going to be the wind with this system, because it's going to be a Cat 4 on our coastline. Now, we're zoomed into the cone. I want to kind of superimpose the actual size of Florence over, let's say, the center of this. So remember, it could be there, it could be up there toward the Outer Banks. So look how that impact would affect the Triangle, how it would affect the mountains, Charlotte, South Carolina, but it could also be way over here. Totally different story for you guys in South Carolina, totally different story for Charlotte, different story for the Outer Banks. So that's why this is such a complicated system, and there's no one answer to anything anyone asks me, because we have an idea that it's coming here, and it's time to take it very, very seriously. But exactly where it's going to be, and therefore the exact wind speed you're going to see in your house, the exact amount of rain you're going to see, it's just too up in the air at this point. And let me tell you, the best scientists, the best science in the world are going into making these forecasts, but sometimes you just have to wait a little longer. Now, here's one of the problems. I want to drop in the sea surface temperatures. Okay, these are the ocean temperatures. You guys been to the beach lately, you know it's like bathwater. That's bad because hurricanes use that warm water to grow. And that's why, as a Category 1 hurricane now, this is going to move into water that's 85, 86, maybe even 87, 88 degrees, and it's just going to explode into that Cat 4 system. The water off our coastline is also incredibly warm. which is bad because if we had any hopes of finding some cooler water offshore where it would weaken right before it would hit us, it's just not going to happen. And while all eyes are on the forecast of where Florence goes, one of the more important things we have to figure out is the high pressure that's steering Florence. Big area of high pressure. It kept us really hot and dry last week. Well, there's a big one over the North Atlantic. And because hurricanes and tropical systems are lazy, they want to take the path of least resistance, it's just going to kind of cruise along wherever that high tells it to go, because it doesn't want to go butting heads with the high pressure because it'll fall apart and that'll hurt it. So it wants to kind of stay the path of least resistance, and that's going to be where the high pressure steers it. So if we have a bigger high pressure, that's probably going to push it a little farther south, a little farther west. But if it gets weaker, it's going to be turning a little sooner. Now that would be ideal for us. We saw a lot of shifts to the south last week, and people got excited about that, meaning, oh, it's going to go to Florida, it's going to go to Georgia. Well, remember, all tropical systems eventually turn north. Sometimes it happens at Bermuda, sometimes it happens way out to sea, sometimes it happens once it makes landfall. So the farther south it went, that's probably bad for us because it's going to turn north, and sure, it could run into Florida or Georgia, but then it could come right up through the Carolinas after that. So we're going to be watching that high pressure almost as closely as we're watching Florence. Here are the latest computer models. They have gotten so much more compact in the past 24 hours because of the new flights of the Hurricane Hunter. Remember, we didn't have that at all most of last week. Saturday was the first one. So you notice that they're starting to get more clustered, which tells us there's a little more confidence in the forecast. And it also tells us that the trend is kind of honing in on North Carolina, unfortunately. So we'll continue to watch the trends and the cluster of the computer models. You don't pick your favorite color there, your favorite computer model run, and hope for that one. You have to watch the cluster, and that's really what we do. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I'll kind of finish up with this and let everyone get back to watching football, and I'll try to answer some questions. Our news tonight is on at 6 o'clock, by the way. A lot of people have been asking how this compares to storms that they remember, historic storms that the world remembers for the Carolinas. So I took Hugo, Fran, Floyd, and Isabel, and I plotted them up there. You see the colors, and I compared it to the current situation with Florence. And what is so unique about Florence is usually when a hurricane is that far north in the Atlantic, remember I said they all turn north? Usually it turns north and doesn't even get close to the Carolinas. Because of the unusually strong high pressure, it doesn't really matter this time because it's not high enough in the Atlantic to be able to turn north and avoid that high pressure. So this storm is not like any of the ones that I have listed here. It is different and just an amazing meteorological event happening that we have a storm that far north in the Atlantic that could be hitting us later this week. And tomorrow, the 10th day of September, Monday, that is the official peak day of the hurricane season. Very ironic that we have the active tropics that we have right now. So let's put it all together and what it means for us and this week. Like I said, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are going to be pretty normal days around here. It's going to be warm. It's going to be muggy. We are going to have some pop-up showers later in the day. The weather from Florence, if everything stays on track, which we have to assume at this point, meaning heavy rain and strong high-impact winds, will arrive Thursday, be here through Friday. We have made both of those days alert days, and it could even go into parts of the weekend if this stalls. I think this is going to mean businesses and schools will be making some changes to schedules if everything stays on track. That is something we will watch for early on this week, and I just want everyone to make sure they have a plan for your house and your family and your friends and family on the coast. Because this could be a monster of a storm, both with rain and with high impact winds in our area. I will see you guys tonight at 6 o'clock on CBS 17. I've got a lot more to share with you. We're going to spend most of the half hour talking about Florence, both the meteorology and what's going on in our community. As always, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm at WeatherWes. And along with the entire CBS 17 weather team, we will be here throughout the entire week living this with you as we get ready for Hurricane Florence.